World War I, the story of humanity's first global war. In the early 20th century, Europe was a continent simmering with tension. The major powers, Germany, Britain, France, Russia, and Austria-Hungary were competing for colonies, expanding their militaries, and forming secret alliances. Beneath the surface of temporary peace lay deep-rooted nationalism, rivalries and mistrust ready to erupt at any moment. It all began with a bullet. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo, Bosnia, by Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist. This wasn't just a political killing. It was the spark that ignited a long-prepared powder keg. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and declared war. But the conflict quickly spiraled. Russia backed Serbia. Germany supported Austria-Hungary. France stood with Russia. Britain entered the war after Germany invaded neutral Belgium. And just like that, the world was plunged into its first global war. The two sides. The war divided the world into two major alliances. The Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, later joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. The Allied Powers, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and eventually Italy, the United States, and many others. This was more than a European war. It was a clash of empires. Fighting spread to Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and across the oceans. Trench warfare. Hell on earth. One of the most iconic and tragic features of World War I was trench warfare, especially on the Western Front between France and Germany. Soldiers lived, fought, and often died in muddy, rat-infested trenches for months or even years. Conditions were horrific. Food was scarce, hygiene was poor, and morale was low. Poison gas, machine guns, and endless artillery bombardments made every inch of ground deadly. Battles like Verdun and the Somme claimed hundreds of thousands of lives for very little territorial gain. The Eastern Front and global battles. While the Western Front became deadlocked, the Eastern Front between Russia and the Central Powers was more mobile but just as deadly. Russia suffered massive casualties, and in 1917, the Russian Revolution caused the country to withdraw from the war. The conflict wasn't limited to Europe. It spread to colonies in Africa and Asia, and soldiers from places like India, Vietnam, and North Africa were brought in to fight for their colonial rulers. The U.S. joins the war. At first, the United States remained neutral, but in 1917, German submarines sank American ships, and the Zimmermann Telegram, in which Germany tried to persuade Mexico to attack the U.S., pushed America into the conflict. With fresh troops and resources, the U.S. helped tip the balance in favor of the Allies. A bloody end. By late 1918, the Central Powers were exhausted. Germany's army and economy were collapsing, and protests erupted at home. On November 11, 1918, Germany signed an armistice. The fighting finally stopped. More than 70 million soldiers had fought. Around 10 million were killed and 20 million wounded. Millions of civilians also died from famine, disease, and bombings. Aftermath and consequences. The war led to the fall of four great empires: Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Russia. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany for the war, forcing it to give up territory, reduce its military, and pay massive reparations. This humiliation planted the seeds for World War II. Legacy and lessons. World War I was not just a war of weapons, but also a crisis of values. It showed the horrifying potential of modern warfare and the immense cost of imperial ambition. In its aftermath, nations tried to create a new world order and maintain peace, but their efforts weren't strong enough to prevent future tragedy. Germany's role in World War I, 1914-1918. The German Empire was one of the main powers that both initiated and played a central role in World War I, motivated by its ambition to become Europe's dominant power economically, militarily, and colonially. Germany made several aggressive political and military moves in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. 1. The rise of Germany and pre-war tensions. After unifying in 1871, Germany quickly rose as an industrial and military powerhouse. This alarmed other European powers. Germany formed the Triple Alliance with Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Britain, France, and Russia responded with the Triple Entente. Germany also pursued a naval arms race with Britain, further escalating tensions. 2. The outbreak of war and Germany's initial strategy. In 1914, following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, Germany offered full support to its ally in taking action against Serbia. When Russia mobilized to defend Serbia, Germany declared war on Russia, August 1st, and on France, August 3rd. Germany launched the Schlieffen Plan, invading France through neutral Belgium to achieve a swift victory. However, this action prompted Britain to declare war on Germany on August 4, 1914. 3. Germany on the battlefronts. Western Front. Germany was halted at the Battle of the Marne, leading to years of trench warfare and stalemate. Eastern Front Germany, alongside Austria-Hungary, scored major victories over Russia, such as at the Battle of Tannenberg. Naval warfare. Germany used U-boats, submarines to disrupt Allied shipping, including American vessels, contributing to U.S. entry into the war in 1917. 4. Decline and defeat. By 1917-1918, Germany's situation worsened. The entry of the United States boosted Allied strength. Domestically, Germany faced economic collapse, food shortages, and widespread protests. Germany's allies, including Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, began surrendering. On November 11, 1918, Germany signed an armistice, ending the war. 5. Aftermath for Germany. The Treaty of Versailles, 1919, placed heavy penalties on Germany, loss of territory, military restrictions, and massive war reparations. Germany was blamed for starting the war, leading to widespread resentment. These harsh conditions contributed to the rise of extremist politics, including the Nazi Party and eventually to World War II. 1. Laws of war and international treaties. Before the war, several international agreements aimed to regulate armed conflict. The Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 were particularly important. They established rules on the conduct of hostilities, including the treatment of prisoners of war, POWs, protection of civilians, and limitations on certain weapons and tactics. However, many of these laws were challenged or violated during the war. 2. Neutrality. Neutral countries were expected to avoid supporting any belligerent party. Their rights and duties were outlined in international law, including maintaining impartiality and preventing the use of their territory for military purposes. Despite this, some neutral nations faced pressure and violations, notably with naval blockades and submarine warfare. 3. Submarine warfare and maritime law. The introduction of unrestricted submarine warfare by Germany posed legal controversies. The sinking of civilian ships, such as the Lusitania, raised questions about the legality and ethics of targeting non-military vessels without warning. 4. War crimes and accountability. I saw atrocities committed against civilians and combatants, leading to early discussions about war crimes. Although formal mechanisms for prosecuting war crimes were limited at the time, the aftermath of WWI set the stage for future international justice efforts. 5. Post-war treaties. The Treaty of Versailles and other peace agreements attempted to address legal issues arising from the war, including reparations and territorial changes. These treaties also included provisions that influenced later international law and the establishment of the League of Nations, aimed at preventing future conflicts.